Shalom family, KARDAYAH here. I had to come back, y'all, because I decided that I'm going to go ahead and try to get this story to y'all about baby number 4. So, for those of you who do know, in 2021, we did have a baby. That was our first child. And it was a little girl. We didn't know the gender because we decided not to find out what the gender was. So, for those of you who do know, I did have her early. And for those of you who don't know, yes, I did. I'm going to tell you from the beginning of how I knew I was pregnant with her, how I knew when I was going to have her, and what happened. So that's the order that we'll go in. So first of all, my daddy passed away in 2020. And around the time of him passing away, after the funeral, when I came back home, I was going through a lot, and we were living in Tennessee at the time. So I was pretty distraught about my daddy being gone. So I went to sleep one night, and the Most High showed me a dream of me being at my daddy's house. And in the background above my daddy's house was, I think, 3 new moons or something like that. And then above my auntie and my uncle's house, which was next door, in the sky, there was some more new moons. So all in all, there was 8 new moons, and then there was a full moon. So I know that we mark our beginning of the month by the new moon. So I was like, Father, what do these moons mean? And I prayed about it, and I was led to the word letting me know, use these new moons as the beginning of the month. So that let me know that in 8 months, on the full moon, something was going to happen. So in 8 months, which was March, on the full moon, which was the 29th, there was a pink moon. You can look it up, in 2021. We had this special pink moon. I don't know if y'all hear Sasha tap dancing in the back with them nails in the background, but yeah, we had a new moon, and that was the night that I got pregnant. So I started having bleeding, which is not uncommon during pregnancy, but with my son, I did not have that at all. So I started having bleeding, and I was kind of afraid or whatever. So I talked to my mama on the phone, and she was like, I know you believe in Jesus, don't you? Because at the time, she didn't have a clear understanding of my religious or my spiritual standpoint. So I was like, yeah. I was like, you can't get to the Father without the Son. She was like, okay, but I'll call him by a different name, as y'all know. So she was like, well, Jesus said you got to come to him and talk to him about this pregnancy. So I went into prayer that night, and I was like, brother, I was just in tears. I was tore up because this was the 4th pregnancy. And I was like, brother, I need you to let me know what's going on. Like, what's happening with this pregnancy? Like, am I pregnant? Or am I going to lose this baby? What? So that night, to answer my prayer, the Spirit took me back into that same dream that I had before. But this time in the dream, I saw 6 new moons. But the last one was faded out. Like, it was starting to fade. I didn't know if that meant something was going to end, or if that meant that was when I was going to have the baby and everything was going to be happily ever after. I didn't really know what was going on. So, yeah. So time went on, and we ended up leaving from where we were living at, and we moved up towards Nashville. At this time, we were in Antioch. So the pregnancy was kind of hard because I was so tired, y'all. When I was pregnant with her, I was just like super tired, and I would have these terrible dreams because whenever I'm pregnant, if I get too hot, I start having these really vivid nightmares. And I was having terrible heartburn. The pregnancy was good for the most part. It was just those 3 things that was really taking me through. So by the time we got to Antioch, I was around I think I was 3 months going on. Yeah, I was 3 months going on 4 months. So we moved up there for my husband's new job. So we ended up moving to Smyrna, which is like 5 or 6 minutes from Antioch. They're next door neighbors. And I I ended up going into my 4th month at our new place. So things got better for me during the pregnancy. I was still tired, and I started to throw up a little more often, and I just didn't have energy to eat very much. I would rather sleep than to eat, but then I had to start forcing myself to eat more. You know what I'm saying? But in the meantime, I think the biggest trial that I was having was I could not get to a doctor. I could not find a doctor. I had Amerigroup. No, I had 10 Care Amerigroup insurance, and that's for Tennessee. No, the doctors in Chattanooga would not take me. It was crazy. I didn't find a doctor until like 2 weeks before we ended up leaving. The OBGYN, Chattanooga OBGYN took me. They told me that I was 2 weeks less pregnant than I knew I was. And this is where you have to stand on faith with y'all. So I'm moving back a little bit. You have to stand on faith according to the Most High's word, because the Father told me when I got pregnant, so I knew exactly when I got pregnant, but they was trying to convince me that I didn't know what I was talking about, and that the baby was 2 weeks younger than I was 2 weeks less pregnant than what I was telling them I was. So I ended up moving away. Whenever I got to Smyrna, I still didn't have a doctor. I wasn't getting regular checkups, which wasn't a problem for me because I don't need the traditional thing. I knew that the baby wasn't sick. I wasn't sick. And that was from me going to the doctor visit that I did go to. So I was cooling. Around the time that I turned like 5 months, I finally did find another doctor. But what was going on was the Most High was keeping me from going to the doctors. I remember one day I had a doctor's appointment with this lady. She was a really good doctor. And I had saw her at the end of another pregnancy that I had where I had a baby in my tube. And I called the Lyft. They wouldn't come. We tried to get the Uber. They wouldn't come. Or the app wouldn't let me come. People was canceling the rides. The taxi service wasn't available. We didn't have a car, but we lived in the middle of the city. We didn't need that. Y'all, I could not go to the doctor. And I finally told the Most High, I said, Father, I was like, whatever is going on, I feel like you're the one that's conducting this. Whenever you get ready for me to go to the doctor, then I'll go to the doctor. And he finally saw fit for me to go to the doctor again whenever I got in Smyrna. So I only got one ultrasound of the baby. I saw her whenever she was very small. And like I said, it wasn't really bothering me. I didn't have to have an ultrasound. It wasn't that serious. She was moving good. She had her times that she would move and she was on schedule just like he was. She was eating better. I was eating better. Still dealing with heartburn. Still dealing with a few aggravations in life. But for the most part, everything was good. So, excuse me. Push came to shove. And I remember one night, y'all, I got aggravated with my husband. I was pissed off with him. And I don't quite remember what it was about, but I know that I had been walking because that's what I do. Wherever I am, you will find me walking. I'll walk all across town, wherever. Yeah, I walked across Chattanooga a few times by myself. I had my headphones, my music, and I would get out there and I would walk. So by this time, I was around 6 months pregnant. I was coming up on 6 months. So I got mad with him and I caught myself leaving and walking down the street to Kroger. Now, from where we were living at, we were living basically up on top of this hill. And you had to go down the hill and back up a little bit to get to Kroger. So it would take me like, it would take me like 15, 20 minutes at a good speed. And a little bit longer than that to at a slow pace to get to Kroger. So it was like 4 blocks down the street. Y'all, I walked down there. My husband was walking with me, but I told him to go home. I was like, just go. I don't need you to walk me. Ain't nobody gonna bother me. He was like, it's dark out here and we ain't in a city that we know. I was like, I know where I am. I walk out here all the time. See, he wasn't familiar with the area. I was already. And I knew how traffic moved, and I knew how to keep myself protected and shown when I needed to be shown and hidden when I needed to be hidden. So, or where I needed to be hidden. So it was a really nice little small town. They didn't have a whole lot going on there. So it was basically safety everywhere. And I thank the Most High for that. So I'm walking. He don't turn around and go back home. I walked to Kroger. I went in there and got what I needed. But y'all, I was having labor pains. And I didn't know that's what it was because I had never had a baby before. But it started a few days earlier. At night. I think it was like late at night because I remember I think we had did the nasty or something like that. Something like that. And I felt these pains. So I walked back home and I get in there and he ended up going to sleep. I was even angrier because I wanted to have sex. I knew I was going to have this baby. Because I know that the sixth new moon, don't forget about the dreams now. I knew that the sixth new moon was about to get ready to roll around. So that means that my pregnancy was going to end or something. So I wanted to have sex and he went to sleep. I was mad because I was so horny, y'all. So anyhow, it was like horny to the next level. So I went in the bathroom and I kept on having to go to the toilet. I took a shower. Then I would be back to the toilet and it was like I just needed to doodle so bad. So I was having these pains in my back and then all of a sudden something let me know. I don't know if it was the angels or if it was the Holy Spirit, but I think it was the angels because I started getting worried. Was letting me know you're in labor. So someone said, sit down on the toilet. So I sat down on the toilet and I stuck my fingers up in my vagina and I could feel her feet. So I was like, oh my goodness. Now, remind you, I always want to have my children at home. I'm sorry, y'all. Dust mites, baby. They mess with me so bad. So I always want to have my children at home. And this was my opportunity to actually have this baby at home. But I was afraid because she was already out a little bit. So I went in there and I woke my husband up because I didn't want to push her in the toilet. And I was like, Timothy, I think I'm in labor. So he was supposed to go to work the next morning. It was like 2:30 in the morning. And I got up, I got dressed, and we went to the hospital, which was across the street, by the way. The name of the hospital was Erlanger Hospital. Erlanger was one of the best hospitals I have ever been to in my life. I cannot lie. They were fantastic. The doctor who came in to work with me, he was terrible. But the nurses were fantastic. So we got there. They eventually got me in a room probably like 20 minutes later, but they gave me an ultrasound, and that's when I found out that the baby's heart wasn't beating anymore. Y'all, I was shattered. I was screaming and hollering so bad. I was like, it ain't nothing y'all can do. I was like, why? Like, what happened? What's going on? Or whatever. Like, it was devastating for me because she was just fine. But I knew that her heart had stopped beating like 2 weeks, 2 weeks earlier. No, like a week earlier on a Thursday. I noticed that she wasn't moving anymore. And then my grandma passed away the next week, y'all. I was just falling apart. I was spazzed out. My husband was like, he thought that the baby had passed away whenever I found out my grandma had died. And I like slid down to the edge of the bed and I was doing all this kicking and stuff. But no, she was already passed. And I just didn't tell him because I wasn't sure and I was praying about it. I was trying to have faith. And I didn't want to worry him. I didn't want him to know that I had a dead baby inside of me, which I didn't know for sure, but I knew that she wasn't moving. And I didn't want him to have that burden on him. I try to care about his feelings and his emotions because I'm not the only person who's bearing this child or who's carrying this child or who's going through this pregnancy. So anyhow, it was real bad. I was just very, very devastated, very devastated. So they got us in the room and active labor started. So I labored for a little while and I ended up having her at 3:06 a.m. 3:02, 3:02 a.m. And she just shot out. You know what I'm saying? Like, she was small. I think she was 13 inches and she weighed, she didn't even weigh a pound yet. And they said she was weighing 2 weeks smaller than expected. And that was the same thing with him. My babies just measure a little bit smaller. They don't necessarily weigh smaller. They measure smaller. So I pushed her out and they gave her to me. And they didn't take her away per se. They let her stay with me for a long time. I think I probably had her for like 9 hours. Like, my husband, he couldn't really take it. Birth, for one, is a lot of anxiety for him. And y'all will hear more about that whenever we tell y'all about the story of our home birth with Ashar. But I was just broke down, and whenever he left to go get some rest, which we lived across the street, like I said, and all the nurses and stuff left, they brought her to me on ice, y'all. Whenever I feel the pain of telling this story or flashing back, the thing that hurt me was when they brought me my baby. They had her laying on ice because she had passed away, so they needed to keep her body cold. And she has snot running out of her nose because she was cold. And I didn't think any of that would happen because she wasn't there. But I was just like trying to cover her up. And I took her off of the ice so that she could sleep beside me because she was so lifelike. Her muscles and everything was still tight. And I was just like, why y'all gotta put her on this ice? Like, she's cold. You could see that she was cold. So, they let her stay with me for a long time. Like I said, I got a chance to really know her and to listen to the spirit concerning her. And I prayed and I said, now, Father, you done gave me this baby and she ain't even here no more. She dead. I got to get her a name. I don't know what name to come up with. What do you want me to do in this situation? I was like, angels, y'all got to help me because I'm not used to this. I don't know what to do in this situation. And my husband wasn't there and I needed him to not be there so that I could like cry out about the situation. And I heard, look up beautiful. So I looked up beautiful, and the feminine in Yiddish is Yafeh. In ancient Hebrew is Yafah. For masculine in Yiddish, they use Yafah. So then I heard, you already know what love means, so use that. So we named her Yafeh Ahaba Israel Houston. Because the word says that we will start in the last days to surname ourselves after Jacob or after Israel, which is the same person. And I remember before we had the baby, I remember telling my husband that I didn't want to do the regular blue for boy and pink for girl thing. That I wanted to do a different color. I wanted to do purple and green. So whenever they brought her back to me after I gave her to them for them to dress her, y'all, they brought her back to me in purple, y'all. I didn't tell these people this. The Most High had already put things in motion because he already knew how things was going to be. So they gave us a purple casket for her. They gave us a purple memory book. Her clothes were purple. everything that they gave us at Purple. So I was very thankful for that. The situation was very magical. It was a blessing. And at the time, I used to sleep with my hands crossed like this, up with my hand like this and my other hand in, but the hand up under my neck. And then I would sleep with my feet crossed. And y'all, whenever she was born, she was the same way. She would sleep the exact same way that I slept. And I had her on the night of the 6th new moon. Excuse me. I had her on the night of the 6th new moon that was in order. So all in all, y'all, it was a blessing. We had somebody from Claxton who buried her. The funeral was for free. And we buried her the day after my mom, which is my mama, and we buried her at the foot of my mom's burial site. So that weekend was a lot for me. But I asked God for understanding of this whole situation. And the answer that I got was that I had to have my mama's first grandchild because my sister was pregnant at the same time that I was. And that the Father would give me more children, but it just wasn't time for me to have her. And that it was a possibility that something was going to be wrong with her. And that I didn't need that. We didn't need that. My husband didn't need that in our lives at the time. So our baby was stillborn. She went to Shammaya with her grandma and grandpa. And all is well. When you're going through a hard time with stuff, ask the Most High to give you understanding. And most likely He'll give you understanding of the situation. And ask the Most High to give you understanding. And if you listen and you wait and ask the angels to help you, then it'll feel much better. But you have to be open and you got to listen for the understanding. And whenever He gives it to you, the pain might not go away right away. I struggled. I tried to drink. I would get wine and I would try to drink and get drunk. Not all the time. I only tried it like 3 times, but I drank wine to help me to feel better. Because the word says, let a man drink wine to lift his spirits. So that's what I learned. Don't be trying to get drunk to drown the pain. Drink wine to lift your spirits. Pray. Enjoy the angels. Enjoy your family. And I don't know how well I deal with my husband's emotions, but that's when I started telling him that he needed to talk to somebody like a counselor, because I wasn't a whole lot of help for him. And I didn't want him to feel like he was going through this situation on one end and I was on the other end. So if y'all have any other questions about this experience, like how to get through it, how to get better, how to feel better, because I don't feel grief about this situation anymore, but I do feel sadness whenever I talk about certain aspects of it, because it's in my head visually, and I feel those things. But Yafei was a blessing. She brought us together. She made her daddy get to where he was like, oh my goodness, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Like he feels like it really improved him a lot, and I saw that it did. Like it really just gave him to get up and go even more. I enjoyed being pregnant with her, and she looked exactly like her brother, or he looked exactly like her. Like this baby looked like my husband, my daddy, and my daddy's husband. I mean, my husband, my daddy, and my husband's dad, all mixed into one. Beautiful little girl. She like a black cherry, y'all. I never seen anything like it before in my life. But yeah, I think I'm gonna end this right here. But that was baby number 4, Yafei Ahaba, and her name means beautiful love. And Thawada to all of y'all for coming to join us, and Thawada y'all for our baby. And yeah, that's all, y'all. Thanks for listening. Shalom, family.